Welcome to the Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we have a couple things that we want to talk about, and we're going to be covering the EGX panel that came out this week. This is back from September, but we got the full panel, so I wanted to cover some of the interesting things that came from that. And we're going to be talking about the latest adventure with the return of the damned. We're going to be talking about how that is playing out, what I think of it, how it plays out as far as like an actual adventure, how the community decision is going, because we finally got an update on that. Plus, we're going to be talking about some of the changes over at New Golden Sands, and we are getting a deep dive on the content update for the upcoming season 8, at the end of this week, which will be really exciting because it'll be fresh and ready to jump into for next week's episode, which will be 250 episodes of this podcast. We're going on 5 years. It's insane. So let's get into it. If you would like to join the patron list, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/Keelhauled podcast and support this content just like these fine fellow folks have. I want to thank People's Republic, L Cute, Balls, Bam Bam Bagel, Captain Haskell, Captain Hayes, Chateau Neuf, Zombie Killer, Cloud, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Fergatron, Trickster, Jabaro5, Carl Embo, Kazia the Rogue, Lumpy SRQ, Dub Goose, Evil Morpheus, Xbox Mike 29, Murphy Lives, Mutinous Max, Raja the Brave, Registella, Replicated Flame, Rustbell Kid, Norwegian, Skamelt 666, Sudesh, Captain Dasm, That Kilted Guy, TN Professor, Real Big Tuna, Big Bad Pad, Super Pack, Mina Fairy, Music Me, The Lord Chronologist, Deadeye Dre, Heger Owl, Ghost Boy 20, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Skinny Matt, Thor Von Blitz, Windsor Chris, and Zam Wow. Thank you all so much for your support. If you're not in the captain tier, I still appreciate the support that you're giving each and every month. It really does mean the world to me. And I love that you guys are happy with the content and feel like you can support it. If you're not part of this group, no worries. There's always opportunity. If not, just share it with other people. The YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. That helps the algorithms. Or just tell people about it if you're a fan of Sea of Thieves and you listen to podcasts and you know people that are as well. This is a great way to help support me and the content that I'm making. Thanks. First on today's docket, let's talk about the EGX panel. This is from the September EGX that a lot of folks were able to get to go to, and it was nice to hear from some of our Keelhauled community members when they came back. They were able to come onto the community episode and talk about their impressions of it. But getting a chance to actually watch the actual panel was really informing. I think it was kind of a victory lap because they got an opportunity to sit down and chat with Chris to kind of dive into some of the different things that have been going on since they last got an opportunity to really go out to a convention. Remember, it's been a couple of years since they've been able to go to conventions, and as a result, a lot of people not really seeing them up on stage talking about the game, talking about what's going on. So if you haven't been following, or you just got a chance to go to EGX and you saw Sea of Thieves and you'd heard about it, but you hadn't really had an opportunity to dive in, it was nice to kind of give a bit of a victory lap, a bit of a refresher on what's been happening specifically in the last year, because seasons really have kind of been some of the biggest things that have come to the game. So actually probably the last 2 years, I guess, at this point. Has it been 2 years since we started seasons? It feels like the beginning of 2022, but I can't remember. It's actually, no, it hasn't. It's been 2 years. I'm crazy. So on stage, I didn't get a chance to find out who the person was that was doing the hosting for the actual panel, but we had Mike Chapman, as always, creative director of Sea of Thieves, Joe Neat, executive producer of Sea of Thieves, and Christina Taylor, who is head of community over at Rare right now, and she's been doing a fantastic job. In fact, she's to thank for a lot of the different things that have been going on in between each seasons, as far as like the different things that are going on with the community. So really glad to see her up on stage actually chatting with everyone, especially given that she's just recently came back from maternity leave. So it was just nice. It was really pleasant to be able to get a chance to see her being able to speak to the game again, and as far as the community goes and stuff. So really happy to see her back on the panel and kind of chatting with folks there. So again, like I mentioned, they kind of did a victory lap. It was great to have them talk about how successful things like Community Day were, especially with this last Community Day. If you guys remember, that was the one where we actually got to go in on one day and try and kill as many ancient skeletons as possible. The ancient skeletons were ramped up given the grade of hashtag Sea of Thieves Community Day. And that was a huge success. It was great to see a lot of folks got an opportunity to jump in on that and actually get a couple ancient skellies for sure. At least one or two. I don't think anyone, I think there were a few people that weren't able to get any, but I really think if you jumped on and you were playing for a couple hours, you got at least one or two for sure. Joe went on to talk about how the team is bigger than ever. They've got a team that is working on custom servers right now, which is nice. They've also got the PvP revamp team, the team that's working on the hit reg and whether or not they're going to do hit scan or projectile based combat. They're still kind of working on that. And then they have, of course, like the normal development team for the different seasons, as well as the services that they're doing, especially with the live service mentality that they've been bringing to the game with all the different adventures. Mike was able to speak to how nice it was that people know what Sea of Thieves is. The conversation came up when they were talking about all of the different teams that they interact with when they're bringing on new studios or co-developers to help kind of flesh out some of the different things that they want to do with the game. And to do that, they are having to go into talks with different studios, right? And it was nice to think about the fact that Sea of Thieves has been out. We're coming in on 5 years now. And it was nice to think about the fact that with 5 years worth of being out in the world as a game, as a live service, you really don't have to explain what Sea of Thieves is to anyone anymore. Like most people, if you've heard about Microsoft or you're following Xbox, you've probably got a pretty good handle on what the shared world gaming is the swag, you know, and it's just kind of nice because you think about it. And like, I remember the videos from back in the day when they were talking to people about what Sea of Thieves is, you know, what does it mean to be a pirate in Sea of Thieves? What does it mean to be in the Sea of Thieves? That was always kind of the conversation. And they're past that. Now they can actually start working with teams and have them be onboarded to work on projects that really do help kind of move the team forward in a much more productive manner. You're no longer getting people up to speed with, well, it's a pirate game and we've got PvP and we've got PvE and we're looking to do this and this is kind of what the arc is. It's like, no, people are fans. People know what they're getting into when they join up to work with Rare. And that's great. That's like on the level of jumping on to sign up for the next Grand Theft Auto or the next Forza Horizon game or the next Halo. Like, it's obviously not as long established as those franchises, but when you say those games, you immediately know what people are talking about. And it's like that for Sea of Thieves now. It's not where you have to go and actually describe kind of what Sea of Thieves is. And that's a good feeling, you know, when you've put your life into this. And for them, it's been like 12 years, but for us, it's been 5. That you don't have to just say like, well, there's not really anything that tells you what to do. You just kind of intuit what a lot of the things in game are, and you know, people work that stuff out, and it's really nice. Moving into kind of some of the other topics that they talked about captaincy. And if that's going to kind of move forward, are they going to be doing things with captaincy? And it was nice to have Mike kind of say like, hey, captaincy is kind of the foundation. And right now with season 8, and this is something that they've spoken to in prior areas, as well as online with Twitter, as well as in updates and podcasts and videos and stuff. They've talked about how Season 8 is intended to be a PvP season, and that a lot of the rewards for PvP through the milestones are going to be bringing content to the game in Season 8. So they're going to really kind of flesh that out. But it was nice to hear that they are speaking to kind of having a social belonging, that they want to reach even further with captaincies, that you have a name and you build up your reputation for yourself and things like that, and that they're going to continue expanding upon captaincy even going into the next year, which I think was really kind of interesting, because from what we understood, at least from the player perspective, captaincy was something that was kind of the way to start up the list of things that you've done throughout the world, and adding different things to your kind of, I don't know, like the notches on a belt. You know, you're kind of like counting up the things that you've done. You know, what are the victories that you've had in the past, or what are the failures that you've had in the past, and see how that all stacks up, and what your pirate is considered based on, you know, the different trinkets and trophies that you can get through the milestone system. So to have that kind of expanded upon is very interesting, because it feels like, you know, there's, you know, obviously places on the boat where you can put up little things to kind of showcase some of the different accomplishments that you've had in the game. And some of those have changed over the last few months, given that, you know, some places you can't place things anymore. They've had to adjust some of those things, I found out. And it was kind of interesting to think about, like, what are the other things that they could bring in that wouldn't feel as grindy as the milestones did originally, before the kind of culling of how long it took to get things done, and still feel relevant, given that the way we're playing feels like it's pretty much covered outside of PvP. Like PvP is effectively the only thing that really hasn't been brought into captaincy. Like there's no rewards for what you get in the game if you're doing PvP, right? So it's nice to hear that they're going to be expanding upon that in Season 8, but even beyond still raises a lot of questions in my mind as to what could that possibly mean. And that kind of brought us to the next topic, which was a little more of the Sea of Thieves, because with Season 8 right around the corner, they spoke to this in September, so it was kind of interesting to hear. A lot of people kind of know what's going on, and if you've been playing on Insiders, this is all old hat for you. So, you know, you don't really have the joy of the surprise of what's going to happen in the game, but that's okay, because you had that, you just couldn't really say anything about it. But it was kind of cool to hear that there's going to be 2 alignments in Season 8, and that kind of coincides with what we're dealing with, right? With the adventure, we've got the Athena's Fortune and we've got the Reaper's Bones. And those 2 alignments are very particular. Like, alignment is a very specific word that I think was chosen to really kind of represent how you are going to be representing yourself. Like right now in the adventure, we are aligning ourselves, either Team Pendragon and Team Athena Fortune, or Team Flameheart and Team Reaper's Bones, right? And to hear that is getting supported and expounded upon in Season 8 it's kind of exciting, because it does feel like a lot of that kind of World of Warcraft thing, something I've been, you know, immersed in since, at this point, the mid 90s, 96, I think, when I played Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. But I mean, it really kicked off in 2004 when I started with World of Warcraft, along with the game launch. And to think about that being in Sea of Thieves is really kind of awesome. I've always loved the idea that there would be kind of a good and bad leaning in a pirate world. You know, like there are pirates who love for the sake of adventure, and there's pirates who love for the sake of destruction. Like there's those that want to create stories through having fun and having a really good adventure. And there's obviously, you know, good and bad alignments based on, you know, how your perspective leans. And it's really kind of interesting to think about. In Sea of Thieves, everything is very fluid. You don't really have anything that you're really locked down to. Like you can kick up a server and you can jump on, you can start working on Athena's Fortune, and then you can leave that server, hop on another day, kick up a Reaper's Bones flag and work through that. In fact, if anything, the ledger systems really do kind of encourage you to hop around to the different alignments, just with the trade companies, right? So what does an alignment in Sea of Thieves mean? Like, what does that really entail? Like, how stuck into this system are you going to be brought into? Like, how tangled up in the alignments are you going to be? Obviously, they know that people are going to have different alignments, and that they're going to want to play together. So people are going to have things on, mixed crews on their ship. In fact, it was really kind of tough to sail with some friends this weekend when we were going around, because by the time I got on the boat, they already had a bunch of enchanted dolls and they wanted to take them to Flameheart. And it was really kind of frustrating because it's not who I wanted to support. And it really did kind of make me think, like, I don't know if I'm going to want to play with people who are going to support the faction that I don't want to support, because I don't want them to win. I want my team to win because they're the team that I chose, because I believe in the Pendragon that goes around and has all these adventures and helps all these people and does all these things and saved us at the end of Tall Tale 5 for a pirate's life. And yeah, did he break a couple things? Did he release a soul that was in Flameheart? Yeah, but would it have been anyone else at any other point? Probably. It didn't have to be him. It just happened to be him, which sounds like an excuse, and probably is, but it's going to make me wonder, like, am I going to start picking who I sail with based on their alignment, or based on who I'm just used to sailing with? Because I would like to make progress towards my alignment. And I can't really say that it would stop me, because honestly, like, at the end of the day, it's a video game. I'd rather spend time with my friends than I would, based on who the alignment is. And I'm always open to being swayed to the side of evil. It just depends on how good the villain is. And the villain, Flameheart, honestly, still not quite the villain that I was hoping. Like, the big red head in the sky and Seabound Soul, honestly, that was the best Flameheart I had ever seen. And yeah, I loved the world event for Flameheart. I thought that was always really great. I always loved using it to my advantage, and I enjoyed doing it. It did get tiresome, but I don't know. Maybe I'm still very interested in that old E3 video of Flameheart walking through that ancient archway, because we don't really know what that was all about. And we don't even really know too much about how accurate that trailer is to the story that is currently being told. Like, is that trailer where, and if you guys don't know, it's the fly through with Sea of Thieves. I believe it was 2018's E3. I'm speaking from memory here, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was 2018's fly through, where you're kind of moving from crew to area to different things, and you had the shipwreck with the different sized mermaids that we still don't have, kind of chasing you as you're trying to grab treasure from this sinking ship. And they had the Kraken arms coming through and smashing the ships, and it had rowboats before we even had rowboats in there. But at the very end, it had Flameheart leading the charge, or not leading the charge, but commanding a bunch of skeletons forward, as his flaming chest was kind of raising a sword up into the air as he came through this portal with a bunch of bats and stuff. And I always still think there's a possibility that so much time has passed, obviously 5 years is closing in on 5 years here, how canonical that scene is to what the team wants to do with the story going forward. Like, is that actually the case? So very curious about what's going to happen in this future, but trying to decide on how alignments work is a very interesting perspective. I'm looking forward to the content update video that we're getting on Friday the 18th. On Thursday, the end of Thursday is going to be when the community decision ends. On Friday, they're going to have a stream in the morning for PST. I think it's like 4 p.m. UTC, which I think is, let's see, if it's 4 p.m. UTC, I don't know if UTC and GMT are synced up right now. But if it is, then that means that 4 p.m. would be an hour before 5, which means it would be about 8 o'clock in the morning, my time, which 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11 o'clock Eastern Pacific time. But they're going to be doing an hour stream, most likely kind of the way they did the original community decision. They'll probably be going over the results of it And then we'll probably get the content drop for season 8 right afterwards, which I think will be very interesting, given that it's intended to be kind of the stirring of the pot. Like right now we're picking sides, we're choosing sides, and we're going to make an alignment. When season 8 comes out, it's going to be PvP focused, and they're going to have alignments set up so that you can commit to that side. Which kind of leads me to a couple of the wallpapers, some of the images that have been coming around, because obviously we have like the Team Pendragon one with a bunch of Athena's Fortune ghost garbs. We've got the ghost clothing as well as the Pirate Legend stuff. But in the background, you've got those bookcases and the Magpie's wing flag and stuff. And it feels like it's a new area. So I'm very curious, like where we're going to be going, that we will be able to stay with Pendragon if, Pendragon probably won't be there if he loses. So I don't know what's going to happen in that case. And same thing with the Flameheart one. Now that I think about it, I don't know what'll actually happen, but effectively, I imagine if there's 2 alignments, one, I'm assuming here that we'll finally be able to get down into the pirate or into the Reaper's Bones hideout. Like the door's going to open. We'll finally be able to go down there. It'll be like a little portal that you can access, and we go down there and there's all the whatever have you for what's going on with the Reaper's Bones. And maybe the Pirate Legend Tavern would have all the stuff for the Athena's Fortune. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like if it's it's an Athena Fortune alignment, I mean, the Pirate Legend Tavern would probably be that. Maybe they move the boat. Maybe they actually build out. Well, no, because they haven't done anything now that I think about it for any side. But maybe they move the boat. Maybe they get rid of the boat and they build out that dock, and you can actually have like a little town there or something. I don't know. That's kind of what's going on, right? Like, I'm just really curious what's going to happen with all of this, because so far season 8 has been a big mystery to me outside of the PvP aspect of it. Now that I got to watch this little trailer, or this EGX panel, finding out about the alignments is very curious too. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with this, because I think one of the things that they talked about was having PvP content on demand, which I thought was a very interesting choice of words. It echoes some of the sentiment behind the people who were looking forward to having something that would be closer to what the arena was. I think a lot of folks were really interested about the Sea Forts, because that was a potential TDM spot for a lot of people, but not having servers want to jump into that. But I guess I should word that better. Being able to get onto a server, go to a Sea Fort, raise the Reaper flag, and wait for people to come fight you is something that I know some of the folks out there have done. Like, I'm pretty sure Fuzzy Bond has grabbed stuff, taken it over to a Sea Fort, and waited for people to come and actually engage in PvP, and they just don't. And that's a good majority of players probably aren't going to do that, and it's really tough. And we've seen this with things like the Shrouded Deep. It's really tough to get players to all agree to do something on a server unless you roll for boats to be able to get multiple crews on one server. And being that we only have 5 ships on a server right now, it's even tougher to really kind of commit people to doing something. So the prospect of having on-demand PvP feels like there might be something going on with the portals. And the reason I say that is purely based off of what was going on with a Hunter's Cry. I think a Hunter's Cry is a good test bed for what they were hoping for with season 8, and that they were able to test that and see if what they were going to do with season 8 was actually going to work well. And if that's the case, then that's great, because it does work. It does actually work out really well. The trouble is that you would have to actually go and sign up for it. So I'm very curious to find out. The queuing system for Arena was always the toughest thing to do. So having on-demand PvP content, I'm very interested to find out if people are actually going to do this, because much like the treasure bearing system and the map quest board, fantastic ideas, very underutilized in practice. So I'm curious what the carrot on a stick is going to be for this. And Mike, or not Mike, Joe actually spoke to this in the actual panel. As you kind of went further into the actual panel, Joe talked about how Season 8 has some of the best PvP rewards that they've ever had for the game, and also some of the best environments, which also kind of makes me think that we're going to be using the portal system, because he talked about some of the best rewards and some of the best environment work and some of the best environments they've seen for this on-demand PvP. So I don't know if this is Arena 2.0. Well, we already had 2.0, 3.0. We'll go with Arena 3.0. I don't know if this is going to be Arena 3.0, but if the rewards are there and the rewards are something that are achievable, both short-term and long-term, I think there's a good chance that whatever this ends up being, that people will actually feel more invested in actually doing it. I know I was sailing with Davram, Patty, and Mina this weekend for our streams on Saturday, and we came across, I think we just completed a skeleton fort. Too many forts in the game. We just completed a skeleton fort, and we were going to go turn in all of our fish to the nearby sea post. We were up by Sharkfin Camp, by the way. So we went up to the wild treasure store, I think is what it is, up there. And we saw a sloop coming in. Sloop just kind of came in out of nowhere. We checked the map. Turned out to be a Reaper 5. Pretty sure it was a portal, because they hadn't been on the server prior, so they weren't working up their portal, their grade 5, or we would have seen it. And when they came over, funny enough, Davram and Patty managed to get a mega keg on their ship and explode it. Patty was able to get on board, but by the time they got back, or he got on, they just about patched everything up and were put all the fire out. And the mega keg didn't even stop them. But we had the opportunity to turn around and managed to get a pretty good broadside on them. And after I think we took down their sails, we put it in a pretty good fight, and they were hitting pretty hard. But really, we had a bunch of cursed cannonballs and blunder bombs to really kind of seal the fate. And I just wanted to say this, because even though we did win the fight, they were very cool about it, and they were really nice. And it was nice to have a positive experience in Sea of Thieves when it came to PvP. So I would say that with Season 8 being focused on PvP, especially on-demand PvP, if the cosmetics are in it, then I'm hoping the cosmetics will be enough drive for folks to want to jump in to actually PvP more, and that the saltiness of the result of losing Arena fades away, and people are able to really kind of go out there and engage with other players who are in it for the PvP. And maybe that might kind of help give players an opportunity to start really kind of learning the ropes when it comes to PvP, because it is kind of a losing art at this point. Like, not too many people really practice it. There's multiple techniques, but you don't have a solid way to really go in and try and better yourself, try and do better with cannon shots, things like that, boards, how to deal with boards and things like that. I still feel like there's a lot of issues with how players get onto ships. Also, hit reg still kind of a big tough issue, and tucking definitely something that people really have to be aware of, because we actually had someone get on our ship without really noticing, and I think that was something that we really have to get better about. Thankfully, the person that was there taught us a few of the spots, so it'll be kind of nice to see if we can use those, or actually just kind of check for them in the future. Still weird thing with the game where you can kind of hide in geometry. Not a fan of it, because it kind of breaks the immersion for the sake of tucking. And I hate when you have to break the game effectively. Like, you have to put your pirate model in a game or in a wall to be able to effectively tuck, because it doesn't seem like a very fair situation where it's like, you're not just being clever, you're just abusing the game mechanics, right? But I can see both sides of it, so I'm just speaking my own personal perspective. People are going to do whatever they want to do. And that was kind of interesting. So yeah, I'm really curious how this is all going to work out, how the alignments are going to work, how the rewards are going to work out, what the environments are going to look like, how well are people going to engage with this on demand, and will things like hit registration and server stability impact this in a positive or negative light? Because that is still very much an issue that we're running into. Ahoy there, pirates. This is the ad for this episode, and I did want to let you know if you wanted to avoid these and just get a regular filler, you can head over to the Patreon. There's a special feed just for patrons that get the ad-free version. If you want to keep listening, though, I can't say I blame you, because this week I want to let you know about Loot Crate and getting 15% off of most crates and crate subscriptions when you use the link and code RobotsRadio in the show notes. Also, you can head over to audiobooks.com, get your first 3 audiobooks for free, and that can include any 2 VIP books, or use the affiliate link for Green Man Gaming. If you're a PC gamer or you'd like to save money on games, it's one of the benefits of being a PC gamer. Head over to Green Man Gaming. You can get codes for Steam, Epic, any of the different stores that they have deals going on. They have deals going on all the time, and if you plan on buying there, please consider using our affiliate link. All of that goes straight to me through the network. Thank you all so much for everything that you do to support this podcast. It means the world to me, and I continue to try and improve the quality and the content for you. With that, pirates, let's get back to the show. Some of the other highlights that came as a result of some of the questions, because they did have a Q&A section there, so it was really interesting to kind of listen to what people were kind of asking. Really surprised that, again, a lot of the questions that we got at EGX are questions that have been coming in from the fans since year one. Honestly, like stuff that people have wanted, like questions about PvE and PvP being split up, questions about Man of Wars being brought to the game, questions about new performance improvements and stuff coming in, like hit registration, questions about like being able to swap your ship in server and not have to back out of the game to do so. A lot of questions that honestly we have had the answers for. It's interesting to hear the confirmation again that a lot of the things that we want are things that they understand and would like to do, but really comes down to time and difficulty, especially given, I would say, the in-session swappability or swapping of ships. Swappability is not a word, but the ability to dynamically change your ship type in-game without leaving the session. Hearing that was something that was actually difficult due to the nature behind Xbox Live servers, as far as like the party system, that was interesting. I was not expecting that. And it was kind of confirmation that, because I remember I asked this question, or at least I talked to Captain J of the Crow's Nest YouTube channel back in the day. He was on the weekly stream, which was kind of like a, hey, if you got picked to do the weekly stream, you got showcased for a lot of people, and a lot of people found your content. But Jay was nice enough to do the hour stream and ask a question for me from, I'm trying to remember who it was with, but I think it was Joe and I think it was Shelly who were present for his. And the question came up of, would we ever be able to dynamically change our ship type in game? And it was something that they said, oh, we'll have to look and see if that's even possible, because they were pretty sure it was possible, but they weren't sure if they could do it. And it was nice to hear that it's something that is possible, but the amount of resources that it would cause, or that it would take to be able to flesh out that system, have people devoted to working on it, testing it. And they have tested this a little bit in the game, because I remember there was a time when ships were spawning on top of other ships. You would go down to your ship and another ship would just spawn on top of your ship. So I know that at some point there was a way that they were working on something to see if you could change a ship mid-ship and what would happen to the ship before yours. And it messed up with the spawning locations for when crewmates would join into a server, or not crewmates, but ships. People would spawn into a server who's spawning people on top of each other. But it seems like it was just a little too difficult for them to be able to do. And while they understand that it's something that would be nice, it's not high on the priority list. Things like hit registration and captaincy, getting those kind of locked down and making sure the performance is still kind of like being worked on, those are definitely much higher from what they talked about as far as the priority goes. And I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that they are continuing to invest heavily in getting the teams that are working on those types of issues fixed before they move forward, especially given that one of the things that Mike had talked about was new weapon types. And I think that was always something that is something that a lot of us are very interested in, to kind of see what kind of tools can be brought to the game, because I know that eventually they would like to take those tools and expand upon those and create more tools to give more control over things for like custom servers, which also came up. They wanted to talk about being able to give players the ability to create their own adventures or create their own tall tales, things like that, as well as PvP events, things like that. In the custom servers, which I think would really help out the community. A lot of us have a lot of different things that we do in the game that are community-based events, and being able to have that set up so that it's easy for us to do, I think is a great way to really kind of add value to the community for when we want to do these events. Giving us much more control over than we currently have with servers, I think would be fantastic. Some of the other questions, one that actually came up that I think is one that I know some of you have actually reached out to me about to get some thoughts on, but it pertains to the Hunter's Call and whether or not that would be getting an update. And it was interesting to hear that they know that they want to do something with Hunter's Call, but what that is still kind of up in the air. But whatever it ends up being will most likely be something that ties to a seasonal theme, that they want to make sure that if they do an update for Hunter's Call, that it's big enough and worthy enough to justify the development time. And that if they're going to do that, then it should be something that really kind of encompasses a seasonal theme, kind of like what we had with Sea Forts or Sunken Shrines, probably a good example of where they know they want to introduce something to really kind of freshen up Hunter's Call, but they're not sure exactly what that will entail. And if they do, they want to do it justice, which is nice. It's good to hear that, right? Some of the other things that they talked about was custom sales or custom fireworks. Obviously, we all know if you think about, like, if you could draw anything in the game, what would you draw? You immediately think of the first thing that comes to your mind. It is the I think, what is it? The developers call it TDD, or no, TTD. Yeah, TTD. Which if you in your mind, if you figured out what that acronym is, good. If you haven't, if you're over 18, I will tell you in private's chat. But if you're not, then I'm not gonna tell you. But yeah, you can always DM me if you're not sure what TTD is, or just Google game design TTD. Actually, I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna open up Google, because Google is the best of friends. Oh wait, I lied. I'm on Bing. Never mind. TTD game design meaning. Let's see. It is not the through the desert technology. I don't know what that is. Game abbreviations. Nope. You know what? I feel like I may have led you a bit astray. You can't just really Google that and get an idea of what that is. But you know what? Again, if you have questions, I'll tell you in private. But I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to divulge what that is. But think about like custom drawing anything in game, especially with the map table. Think of what you would put on a custom sale, and then think of what TTD stands for, and you'll understand why they were a little hesitant to give us custom sales. That being said, they did just expand the team for the creator crew, which would be great if content creators were able to get their stuff in game, because I would love to have a Keelhauled sale livery set that I could appoint to certain people who are mods in my community, and be able to say like, hey, these are the people who have supported me, who have helped me with my community and help kind of build it up and moderate it. I would like to reward them with Keelhauled sales, as well as sail around myself with the Keelhauled sales on my ship, because right now I'm using the Cursed Captain's one, and obviously the Cursed Captain, fan favorite, my favorite character out of Pirate's Life. But I 100% understand It's not mine, but it is really close to mine. So I'm using it for now, but I would love to have Keelhauled sails. Custom fireworks would be interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing what custom fireworks could be in a sense. And that actually brings up one of the other questions was someone asked if the cursed captain from the first Tall Tale for a Pirate's Life was the captain from the Tall Tales 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Dark Brethren Court layer where they got the letter for the captain in Davy Jones's locker. No, Davy Jones's chest. Obviously not the same one. You guys, if you've been listening to my content, you all know A, the cursed captain is not him. B, it is Hook. We just have to get to the point where we realize that it's Hook and see like what Hook is and what Hook means in Sea of Thieves, which I think is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. And then I think that the last thing was raid bosses. If we were ever going to be able to do a raid boss or a large fleet, and Mike, for lack of a better term, confirmed that we will be doing large fleet PvE content. And I think this is something that I talked about with Joby One in the last episode. I want Flameheart to sail on the Golden Blade, and I want the Golden Blade to be his ship and his son's ship, and their fleet of Reapers go around. They're emergent threats. They're not something that is tied to a world event, but they're an emergent threat that sails around. You know when it's happening because you can see it coming from a mile away, and you have a choice. It will be aggressive. It will not be passive unless it gets too close, kind of like the skeleton ships. I want it to be aggressive. I want it to see ships, and I want it to go after ships. And maybe the only man, this would be funny. The only way you can get away from having to deal with this PvE threat is if you're flying the PvP Reaper's Bone Emissary. How funny would it be if you had to get away from the PvE threat by flying the PvP flag? That's I'm loving this idea now that I think about it. But the PvPers don't have to deal with the PvE threat because they're focusing on PvP and under the guise of Flameheart's, loyalists, and as a result, the Flameheart doesn't go after them. They'll go after just about any other ship on the server. But I would actually like that if there was like a moving fleet of PvE threat that is out there hunting other pirates. There isn't really anything like that in the game. There's, you can have a Meg spawn on you, you can have a ship spawn on you, you can have a Kraken spawn on you, but you never know when it's coming, right? And I know, full understanding, there are very specific spots in the world that Megalodons will spawn, like just to the west of Plunder Outpost, just to the west of Isle of Last Words. There's little pockets of the world that if you sail around in, you'll have a higher chance of spawning a Megalodon or a Kraken or a ship fleet or skeleton ship. Any of those will kind of pop in certain areas. And a lot of it has to do with triggers in the game code that say like, if world event down, spawn on pirate, if while sailing through certain area, make sure to really, have the Megalodon bite the stern or the bow so you can't fire at it, because right now apparently that's broke. I don't know why the Megalodons are not acting as the code was originally told us that it should be forever ago, but it still does that. But it would be nice to have kind of an AI threat that's out there, that's scary, that is going after other ships. Because right now, so many people that I talk to, well, not so many people, a fair amount of people that I talk to are like, I want to bring Flameheart back so I can finally kill him and get him out of the game. And I'm like, I think you are, this is the cursed monkey paw. Bart has wished upon the cursed monkey paw, and one of the fingers has closed. And I don't think you all really understand the ramifications of what you're doing. But that's okay. Pendragon made the same mistake. And if you didn't learn from Pendragon, we'll have an opportunity after the Reaper's Bones wins after this community event, and then we can all be in the same bag as Pendragon, and we can all sit there and say, oh man, I can really sympathize with how Pendragon feels right now. I probably should have sided with him, and so that he wasn't stuck in the portrait that was supposed to trap Flameheart's skull or Flameheart's soul. But all in all, I will say that the EGX panel was fantastic. I actually really enjoyed listening to it. There's something very calming about listening to Mike and Joe talk about the game. I don't know what it is, but every time they hear like something going on with the community and how it kind of energizes them, every time I hear from them about the game, it always energizes me. Like, it always gets me super excited about what's coming to the game. I'm super excited about that. So it was nice to be able to get that little shot in the arm as we're kind of grinding through the large amount of content that was clearly delayed due to captaincy pushing back season 7 as much as it did, because as we're going to get into with the latest adventure, it was very apparent what this adventure was intended to be, and unfortunate that the delay with captaincy pushed the schedule forward, or pushed the schedule back so much that it really did kind of hurt the opportunity for players to really have some fun with these adventures in the time that it was apparent that they were intended to be to. But let's take a break. I'll come back. We'll jump into the latest adventure because I want to talk about that on my own thoughts and really kind of flesh out some of the thoughts that I had with this. And I know I've been saying flesh out. I don't care. You guys can hate me for it. And we're back. If you are listening to the Patreon feed, you didn't really have a whole little ad break right there. You just had a little bumper. But if you're listening to the free content, then thank you. I appreciate that you guys are listening to the feed regardless. But I wanted to talk about Return of the Damned. This is the latest adventure from Sea of Thieves. It's been going on for a week. We just got an update this week that confirmed that the Reaper's Bones, or Team Flameheart, is in the lead with the Enchanted Doll turn-ins. Obviously, the more you turn in, the more flags that are raised around the sea forts, the more credit you get. Go out there. I will say that Saturday, when I was last playing, because I didn't get a chance to play today as of recording, I was playing God of War today, that I didn't see any flags raised over at the sea forts. It seemed like it was like maybe one or two in the few hours or 4 or 5 hours that we were playing that night. And it was kind of surprising because I think everyone kind of did what they wanted to do. They got the adventure done, and they didn't get any updates. So it didn't really feel like anyone knew kind of where they wanted to go with it. Like, did they need to continue working on it? So I'm kind of curious how everyone feels, and I'll kind of share my thoughts after this, but I want to pose the question. I'm kind of curious how everyone feels about only getting the update once during the actual 2-week period. I think in the 14 days, I would like to have every 3 days an update, so that we get 4 updates throughout the 2-week period. That would give players every quarter of time, they would understand like kind of where things are at. So, you know, the first quarter comes up, so-and-so is in the lead, everyone works on it. Come halfway, everyone realizes that it's completely flopped and they have to go back the other way, and then, you know, so on and so forth. And then till you get to the very final end, when you finally actually get to hear what the results are. So outside of not really hearing too much about what's going on, I still really enjoy the fact that it's still kind of a mystery. I don't think I want a live update because I don't need to see how many people are turning in on a constant basis. It's not going to change or sway my opinion or how hard I work on this, because I'm only going to work so hard on this, right? I'm not going to dedicate as much resources to this as anything else in the game when I do it. When I do actually sail, I'll try and focus on it when I can, but you know, I can only do so much in the 2-week time frame. So, but overall, Return of the Damned, having Pendragon and Belle working on trapping Flameheart's soul in a painting, not Pendragon's painting, but a painting, is a very interesting leap from where we were with the last adventure, where we were left with Pendragon and Belle realizing that Flameheart's body was gone, and so was Stitcher Gems. And we found out what happened was that the Servant of Flame and some Reapers came absconded with the bodies and then took them back to the Reapers hideout. What they ended up doing, and thanks to the journals on this, was they took Stitcher Jim's skull, which you know, it was a little unceremonious, but I remember we had been talking about having Stitcher Jim come back for so long, right? We wanted to have Stitcher Jim back in the seat, as far as the storytelling seat, as they're driving the storytelling car, and kind of share with us what's going to happen and have his role be a little more important than just kind of the lackey, always being the lackey, right? And as we found out in this adventure, as far as we know, at least, Stitcher Jim, unless he comes back with a skull, a different skull, he is gone. He has played his part. And even after failing, being the Herald of Flame as a Ashen Lord, which is a bummer because you had 2 weeks of using that Ashen Winds, Ashen Lord model. And that's it. That's all you get. But they have the voice lines. It's not like they could never bring him back. But for the story purposes, at least, he is gone for now. His skull was changed. They used magic to change it so that it looks more akin to Flameheart's original skull, which is why he looks the way he does now. And his coffin is open up at Reaper's hideout. I like that the Servant of Flame is out of the actual hideout and that it's still a turn-in point. I think this is a brilliant idea. I think that it's a lot easier for Reapers to turn in. This also kind of removes the suspicion of people who are hiding out inside the actual tent, waiting for people to run in. It removes the keg play aspect of it as well, too. And kind of puts it on par with, I think, what a lot of people were upset about when Sovereigns first came in was that Sovereigns just made it way too easy to be able to turn in. And having the Servant of Flame, Flameheart Jr. out there in the middle of the island really does kind of shore things up. In my mind, like you're not stuck pulling up to that one spot on Reapers. You can actually pull up to the little jetty, the little dock that's out there, and drop stuff off that way. And I actually like it a lot better that way. The spot where everyone has on the south side of the island, I really hate that spot. It's stupid. It's a death trap. I know it's faster and I still don't care. I'm okay running stuff a little bit further for the ease of being able to have my ship in a better place in the event that I need to bring someone or deal with another ship coming in, right? So I was glad to see that he's out there, but just like Bell, just like with their table, and I actually really like this. So they took the table that was used for Shrouded Deep, and they have little forts on there, little miniature forts, which I think are adorable, and each one that has Bell or the Reaper's flag raised over at that fort not only shows the beacon, but it also shows the little flag above the fort, and it shows like who's in charge of what, right? And each of the little forts is in conjunction with the direction that sea fort is based on the table. So if you're looking at one of the little forts, you can use your compass to look out into that direction. If you head out to that direction, you'll find that sea fort. And it's a little thing. It's a little touch that I really enjoy, because it makes me think of, like Game of Thrones or World of Warcraft or what have you, any show, movie where there's a war going on and they have that table, right? And that table has got it's got the landscape. Here are the lands that we have all of our armies, and the armies are moving forward to these different places, and we've set up little miniature models on the table so that it represents what places are occupied by what forces, and you can tip over the little one when you've accomplished. It's kind of like that, but for Sea of Thieves, and I actually really like it. I think it's kind of, again, the little miniature sea forts are adorable. I absolutely really love those. Can't wait for those to kind of be more of a staple in the game. I kind of want those to be like a staple. I would love to have like a nice little table that you can look at, kind of like with the emissary tables, to know kind of if someone's taking over territories. Because I kind of think that's what I would like to see with the game. And I think New World does this really well. I think New World has a map that you can pull up, and granted, Sea of Thieves doesn't have that. But I think New World does a really good job of showing territory that can be occupied in the world. And it changes over time, right? That's kind of the gameplay aspect of New World, right? So having something like that in Sea of Thieves, I think would be interesting. The problem comes down to how many people are playing on one server. And it always goes back to there's only 5 players on one, or 5 ships on one server, right? So at the end of the day, you're only going to have so many people participating in these types of things. So I'm really curious to find out how this season 8 will introduce some of the things that we've taken with this adventure, and see if those get reintroduced in a new form for season 8. So really kind of curious if they'll kind of keep doing that, because I actually really like this. One of the things that one of the things that I wanted to touch on is the inevitability of if Flameheart wins and we end up losing Pendragon. One of them are going to be trapped in the Sea of the Damned, right? But we don't know which one. That's up to us. We're the ones that are working to help kind of facilitate the ritual to either bring back Flameheart or bring back Flameheart and trap him in the painting that Pendragon is trying to force his soul into at the time. And that all really, honestly, like all of that feels like a little disjointed. And I want to say that I believe that there was probably a little bit of time in between the last adventure and this adventure where Rare was intending to build out some of the story a bit more, either through social media or just in the game, where we would normally have some time between those. And that would be the lead up to Flameheart and Stitcher Jim's body have been absconded. They've been rescued by the Reaper's Bones. And in the time between the last adventure for Herald of the Flame and Return of the Damned, they kind of explain like the ritual, right? The ritual that they have to perform to try and get Flameheart's soul and trap it in a body, or not trap it, not a body, a painting. And because we had such a short amount of time between the adventures, it feels as though we lost out on us being able to really kind of chew on the fat, if you understand my meaning here, to kind of like have a moment to process what's happening, so that we can have some dialogue in the community to kind of understand what's happening in the game, to come up with theories, things like that. And I'll be honest, I really did love the fact that we were getting content so fast and furious. And I know that the delay in season 7 is probably what pushed everything so close together, so that they didn't have that time to really kind of let people settle in with the concepts of what's been going on. But jumping right into Herald of the Flame, and then into Return of the Damned, and then right into season 8 has actually been very thrilling to me. I think it's been really awesome that we've had like a couple weeks of one thing, and then a couple weeks of another, and then right into season 8. It's been great to see them just kind of pushing content and pushing content and pushing content. You know, you've always got something to think about going on with the story, which is a real bummer if you are some of the people that play this casually. You don't always get to jump in. Maybe you're playing once or twice a week at most, and you're not really keeping up with the story because you have other ideas of what you want to do in the game. But the story still kind of has some influence in what you want to do in the game, and you still really enjoy what's going on. You kind of miss out on that, right? So I really like the pacing, but I understand why the pacing could be slowed down, or why it should be slowed down, just to give people time to catch up with what's been going on. But I wanted to talk about what losing Pendragon could mean for us as players. Again, I really love Pendragon. I think what Pendragon did to stop a lot of the skeletons in the world from murdering pirates and trapping their souls into objects was fantastic. I love the stories of him going out and battling a bunch of different creatures and getting bored with that and thinking, I need something different, and then finding out about the Sea of Thieves, especially given that a lot of the time when he was sent out to go take down like a creature or a monster, or something like that, it always came down to like, it wasn't a monster. It was actually people, and people like misrepresenting stuff. So it was like the truth of the matter is that the real monsters were the humans around the story that he was being told to go stop something. Like go head over to Comixology, search Sea of Thieves Origins, find the Pendragon comics. They're free You can read them at your leisure, and they're great. I actually really love those comics. I hope that they bring out more comics, because the origins and the Pendragon stories and stuff are just great. And knowing that we're potentially going to lose him, given the current status of the adventure, is kind of a bummer, because I really think that he is one of the few beacons of light in the Sea of Thieves story, and losing to me a model figure to emulate is kind of a bummer. It's kind of like losing Han Solo. You know, it's how I feel. Like, I feel like if we lose Pendragon, it's kind of like losing Han Solo in Star Wars. It's just not going to be the same. And I hope I'm assuming it's temporary, because I really enjoy it. But to lose that, to hear people actively say, oh, I don't want Han Solo in Star Wars anymore. It's kind of like, oh, really? That's your go at it? And they're like, well, yeah, if it means bringing back Vader. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that. But it's like, man, it's a hard choice for me to make, because I love both characters, right? I love Pendragon and Flameheart as much as I love Vader and Han Solo. And I'm saying Han Solo because Han Solo obviously had the better lines and stuff compared to like Luke and whatnot. But it's just one of those. I don't know why I'm going on this weird tangent, but one of the things that I hope for with Sea of Thieves, if Pendragon is getting trapped in the painting, or at least in the Sea of the Damned, I'm hoping that this affords us an opportunity to touch upon the DeMarco story, because the mystery's done. We know who killed DeMarco. We know what happened. The trouble is what now? You know, like we don't have resolution. We have motive. We have a little bit of justice, but we haven't done anything to actually get DeMarco's soul back. His skeleton is still sitting over at Sea Dog's Rest. I don't know if the intent is to have DeMarco come back now. I mean, obviously it's like one of those situations where it's like, hey, they killed off Arena. You don't really need these characters. You could bring other characters into the game. So as a result, why don't we leave DeMarco where he's at, and we don't necessarily have to address that. But again, it comes back down to the story of like, DeMarco wanted to leave. He thought it was crazy to try and broker peace between the Sirens, and Ramses set him up to do that, and he wanted to leave the Sea of Thieves because he thought it was a suicide mission. He couldn't believe why his father was sending him on a suicide mission, right? So it'd be very interesting. Like, Ramses obviously upset that his son was killed enough to go after the Siren Queen, or stop the Siren Queen. So it's like, well, what do you want? You want to send your son to go broker peace, and you think that will happen and that your son won't die. Well, your son died trying to get away from the thing that you sent him out to go do by the people that you sent him to go do it with. And at that point, it's like, great, your son was right, and he didn't have to die. He could have left the Sea of Thieves and been fine. So what now? How are you going to make amends? And it really does kind of make me think, like, what kind of a character is Ramses? What kind of a character is he to do nothing for so long that it really took his son's death and his daughter getting trapped for him to actually act, to do anything, really anything, as a hero. So when I think about this, I'm like, man, this is why I like Pendragon. Pendragon is a lot more proactive about stopping evil than even Ramses is. He's out there fighting Davy Jones with us at the end of the Pirate's Life Tall Tales. He's out there trying to stop the Reaper's bones during the summoning of the shrouded ghost to get the Veil of Ancients, right? He's doing so much to try and right the wrong of Flameheart being released into the world. Compared to Ramses, it's like, well, if I lose Pendragon, I don't know that I have a reason to fight for the Athena's fortune, because nothing about Ramses has really told me or indicated that he's the person that I want to follow into battle. I will follow Bell. Bell's been very active about helping, and so has Pendragon, but Ramses has been kind of stagnant, and it's frustrating having him be a leader. So I would be very curious to see like what happens with Flameheart. But if Pendragon goes to the Sea of the Damned, I hope that he can bring back DeMarco's soul if we get an opportunity to bring them back I hope if we go back to get Pendragon, that we're also able to go back to get both DeMarco and Pendragon, and maybe that'll light a fire under the Flame Lord, or under the Pirate Lord, and he'll be able to, you know, have a little more active role in what's going on with the Sea of Thieves. Just to really kind of touch on the adventure again, I really love this adventure for what it does for the content that was brought in at the beginning of the year. And with this season kind of sending us, or this adventure, I guess, kind of sending us back to the sea forts, it was nice to know that I can continue working on sea forts without people really getting huffed about the fact that I want to go out to do sea forts. I really enjoy sea forts. I think they're a fantastic addition to the game. I think it's great that you have such beautiful little structures that look so good in the game, and be able to go do them. It's on-demand content. It doesn't require a voyage. It's out in anywhere in the world. You know, you've got 6 of them. And I just think they're really, really great. I'm 2 away from getting my 50. And that's with me kind of going out and doing them like each lunch break that I have time to actually sit down and do Sea Thieves. I jump on and do one. And I love that. I'm glad that we got a chance to go back and do that. And I love the idea that we are able to raise a flag for our respective team, right? And that's kind of what I've been going at this whole time is I love the idea that we have territories, or that we're holding or occupying territory. And I wanted to know if you all thought it would be good if something like this happened. Like if you could claim the sea forts for the Reaper's Bones in the Shores of Plenty, you would get an increase multiplier to gold turned in those areas, and that maybe you could turn stuff into sea forts, all kinds of interesting ideas and stuff like that. But at the base of it, I'm very interested in the idea of having the Sea of Thieves split between the 2 different sides, the 2 different alignments, as Mike Chapman put it. And I'll be very curious, like how this coincides with the content update that is getting launched on Friday after we get the decision results. I'm very curious to kind of see like how that all works out. But overall, I'm really happy with the content in Sea of Thieves right now. More so than I have in maybe the last few updates. I think again, like Shrouded Ghost was hindered by having to have multiple crews as well as the stability of the fight. But the concept was really great. Same thing with the Hunter's Cry. I think the hindrance there was the player in the players and how they came in and really kind of messed things up. But I think that the overall design was really interesting and unique. So I'm happy with that. But I will say that Herald of the Flame and I think Return of the Damned are 2 of the better adventures that we've gotten this year, that we can point to and say like, this is how the game should progress the story. These are how you have little moments that are great ways to elaborate on the lore and further the plot that is being told in the game for those of us who are huge fans of that lore. And really just kind of wondering like, where do we go from now, especially given that season 8 is so heavily focused on PvP. I'm curious how that's going to work in favor of the story, especially with things like going on over at Golden Sands Outpost and seeing the changes that are over there. I don't know what's going on over there. I talked about it last episode as far as like, I'm hoping that it becomes a bustling town. I've seen tweets from Mike on online that have basically suggested that it's going to get even crazier as we go forward. And one of the questions that I had with it comes down to, with the new buildings over at New Golden Sands Outpost, with all the walls and stuff, one of the biggest things in Sea of Thieves is information. So much in this game depends on the information that you're given based on what's going on around you. Having perception on your environment and being able to judge things based off of that information is integral to success with Sea of Thieves. So when I look at what's going on with New Golden Sands Outpost, one of my concerns, and this isn't a serious concern, but it is a concern, is the visibility of being on that island. We've been seeing walls, we've been seeing staircases that make me wonder, just how big the structure is going to be built up around on New Golden Sands Outpost. We've been seeing the walls being dug so that they can be buried, so that they're secure. And looking at just how big stuff could potentially get, I'm wondering if this is going to be another situation where we're talking about the giant stone archways. When A Pirate's Life came out, we had these giant stone portals that were erected from the sea, wherever, somehow. But, you know, Calypso had raised these so that we would be able to travel to the Sea of the Damned on demand to be able to help out with Jack Sparrow and the little trinket relic that he had that he promised to her. And it really did hinder some of the sightlines, as well as just kind of the overall aesthetic in the world. And I'm curious to know if New Golden Sands will be subject to this scrutiny, if people will take a look at the structures that are being built up over at New Golden Sands and those that saved it, if that will start to conflict with what they were hoping would happen by saving Golden Sands. Again, goes back to that monkey paw. You know, you make the wish, you say, I wish that we were to save Golden Sands. And they said, okay, great. New Golden Sands has been saved. Now we're going to build up the fortress that's there so that it can properly prevent anyone from coming and attacking it the way they did when we were fighting to save it, right? And as a result, it ruins some of the beauty, some of the natural mystique or you know, kind of environment that was New Golden Sands, you know, once bitten, twice shy. So I'm very curious to hear if people if they're going to be upset if things get a little too modernized as a result of saving Golden Sands. And if that's the case, what would have happened if Golden Sands burnt? Would it be an issue? Would you run into these giant structures? Would structures still be erected at Golden Sands, or would something else happen? Very curious to find out how you feel if giant walls are put up and it obstructs your view, especially from the direction of Reaper's Hideout. If you're not able to see, just how high do you have to go out and watch? Or is this something that you're interested in? If they had a giant bell tower in New Golden Sands, if you were kind of going up there and it was a lookout and it was a bell that actually rung so loud that if you were, say, down by the shipwright and the person that was in the bell tower over by, say, like where the tavern is right now, if they rung that bell, would that bell be loud enough for people to actually hear it down at the shipwright? You know, something that really does kind of function as a warning bell, as you would expect, right? Very curious to find out, like, would people be interested in something like that? Would you be interested in having a warning signal, something to be able to let you know that there's a ship coming in or that there's a threat on the horizon, using that in elevated position? Like if you look at Sea Dog's Rest. Sea Dog's Rest is a perfect example, but take that, what that is, the visibility that Sea Dog's tower, or tavern provides, and apply it to what a fortress would be like over at New Golden Sands. If that's something that you would be interested in, or if that's something that would actually kind of be distasteful for a pirate game for you, like, is it a little too modern? I really want to hear some thoughts back from everyone about whether you think that would be a positive or a negative, because it's happening one way or the other, and it's a result of us saving. So I'm curious, for those that wanted to save it, if this is exactly what you wanted, or if it is the monkey paw that you now are having to deal with, the wish that is cursed, right? Personally, I really love this. I think it's fantastic. I really look forward to seeing kind of what they did with A Pirate's Life, Tall Tale. Gosh, what was it? 3? I think it was 3 when we went to the little sea fort, the Spanish fort. I really love that. I had such a good time with it. I really love that whole Tall Tale is beautiful. I'm looking forward to that. I want it upped a notch though. And what I mean by that is I want to have the NPCs to have a bustling town, right? I want town folk who have a routine and they walk around and they have a little routine and they do things and you can talk to them, but they're talking to each other and they're traversing the different parts of there. I want like manned walls by pirates who are up there with little hats, and it was P. Joblin who was in the talent contest that Dread Pirate Doug did for the Race of Legends community. They had an amazing admission to the actual talent show, and it was the day in a life of a sea fort with Spanish soldiers and a chef, and people were sitting on there, and then a ship came in and they were getting attacked and they had to defend the fort, and it was a beautifully well done machinima that really kind of showcased in my mind what Sea of Thieves is, and I think when all of us think of Sea of Thieves, we think of the full pirate's life thing. You think of like every tavern is full of people drinking and having conversations about the things that they've done. It's never just like, oh yeah, there's the barkeep, Lorena's outside, and there's the weird dude over by the door that goes to nowhere. I don't think anyone really thinks of the tavern in their mind when they're talking about like what the fantasy of Sea of Thieves is. Thinks of things being so barren with just the bare minimum pirates. And maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm just projecting, but it really does make me want to have a world where we are just living in and amongst a whole bunch of other NPCs. And this is probably like has to do a lot with the other games that I play. When I'm playing Destiny, there's people in and about the world on the tower. And yeah, their voice lines do get repetitive after a while, but I tune those out. But having them there is better than just having like an empty landscape and just the people that are behind the places that are places where I interact to check my mail or access the vault or pick up a bounty. And they just have little animations, like, all the NPCs in Sea of Thieves have little animations, and they don't have to do much, but just having more people around, I think is what I would like. But that's also really resource intensive too. So, I'm asking for a lot, but that's because I'm hoping for a bit, right? If that makes sense. Like I want a lot of stuff to come to the game, and that's because I hope that at least a bit of that will actually make it to the game. And if a little bit of that makes it to the game, I'll be happy. But if I don't say how much I want, then it feels like maybe we're not reaching high enough. I can't think of what the saying is, but there's that kind of positive affirmation saying that's like, you shoot for the stars so you can land on the moon. It's I don't know, but yeah, I feel like I'm kind of getting past the point of where I wanted to finish this up for. The one thing that I did want to say about the adventure, now that I almost forgot about this, but I didn't really like the fact that whilst both places were centrally located for turn-in points for the enchanted dolls, in Herald of the Flame, they turned off all of the volcanoes in the roar so that people could do this 2-week adventure, right? So they could enjoy this bit of lore. But in Return of the Damned, they didn't turn off the ghost fleets or the Ashen Winds or heck, even the what was it? The I just forgot what the name of the voyage. The Veil Voyage. Whatever the Veil Voyage is. Legend of the Veil Voyage. I can't think of what the Veil Voyage is called. I think it's just Veil Voyage. Don't hate me on this, but you can go to Shipwreck Bay, and we did this weekend where we had 2 bells on Shipwreck Bay. Like that's weird, right? Like it's weird that there's 2 bells on Shipwreck Bay. There's one over with Pendragon during the adventure, but there's also another one that just shows up next to the buoy on the south side of Shipwreck Bay because that's where she spawns when it's a pirate legend Veil Voyage, right? So it's annoying that people are trying to troll the people that are supporting Pendragon by spawning ship fleets over on Shipwreck Bay. It's also annoying to have to try and deal with an Ashen Wind, and I haven't had to do this, but I know people have. It would be annoying to have to do this, but having to deal with an Ashen Wind person to be able to, or an Ashen Wind Lord or Ashen Lord during Ashen Winds on Shipwreck Bay to be able to turn in your enchanted dolls so that you could support Pendragon. And given that Flameheart is winning right now, makes me wonder, or at least call into question, how much of an issue this is, because I don't imagine it's a big issue. I really don't. But it was a bit of an oversight in my mind that it was called into question, and we haven't really seen any commentary about this. And maybe that's just due to a lack of analytics. Maybe it's just due to the fact that the event's already half over. But I would hate the idea that we lost the Pendragon fight because there was a way to grief others with PvE threats, whereas Reapers really doesn't. Outside of other ships coming into Reapers, you really don't have anything to worry about. Like, even those that are arguing that the ship fleet world event is right next to Reapers hideout, you don't have to deal with that if you're turning into Reapers. It's not like those ships come over and start attacking you while you're turning in. You don't. That's not an actual issue. If you're sailing through the ship fleet to get to Reaper's Bones and on purpose, and you are doing so thinking the ship fleet isn't going to be that big of an issue, you're either really confident or really dumb. And those are two sides that I don't know that I want to have a 50-50 coin flip on. But I was hoping in the future, and I will say credit to Rare for making this event, this community decision being a lot more fair in general. But I think that this one thing is the one critique that I have to pull out, to point out and be like, this adventure is fantastic. This little thing right here was a slight oversight that I hope that they take into account with future decisions, because everything else was perfect in my mind. I really do believe everything else was perfect. The Enchanted Dolls was great. The messaging that came out from Rare, if you were paying attention to Twitter or their website, social media, stuff like that, if you were paying attention to that, it was very well laid out exactly what counts, what doesn't count, what you have to do. They had a huge thread of how the adventure works, how to understand it. And if you read through that, you should have been Gucci. But it was a lot better communicated than what we've had in the past with adventures, right? So I think that the social team did a fantastic job. I think that the design team did a fantastic job. I think that the service teams have done a fantastic job. And the story team, the narrative team, all of the people that worked on it, I think they've done a fantastic job with making this community decision. While it feels a bit less impactful compared to the first one, I think due to the kind of mixing of it being a community decision, but it's also an adventure. I think that was a little bit lost on at least me, and I don't want to speak for anyone else on that, but I think everything was really, really well done with this adventure. I think the only oversight really was to the voyages that you could put on there, and the world event being able to be at Shipwreck Bay. If those two things had been turned off for Shipwreck Bay, I don't think there would be any question that whatever the results are, if Pendragon loses, that it was done fair and square through the efforts of the Reaper's Bones. And if Pendragon does actually win, as far as like being saved, it will definitely be a testament to the people who persevered through potential issues to try and save him, to be able to turn in there without any griefing or things like that. And vice versa too. Like, if you are trying to save Pendragon, there's nothing stopping you from sailing over to Reaper's Bones, camping it out, and killing people who are trying to turn in, take their enchanted dolls, and then go turn them in over at Shipwreck Bay. There's nothing stopping you from being able to do that as well too. So it's all up to the community on this one. I would hope that in the future they maintain a lot of the things that they did with this community decision, because I think that this was not only the most fair way, but really well thought out, given the placement of the islands, the turn-ins, the way that you actually impact it, how you can impact it more, the multiplayer with the multiplier with the actual flames and stuff, and the sea forts, they're all balanced because they're all in different areas. There's 2 to each sea, and you can go to any of them. I think this was probably the best way you could have a community decision tie it into the lore and have it be as fair as possible. I really don't think that you can get any more fair than this, outside of the small oversight that I think with the ship's fleet and all that jazz. But overall, I'm really happy with what Sea of Thieves has been putting out lately. I think this is some of the best content that they've had since A Pirate's Life. I think they've done a fantastic job really pushing Sea of Thieves' story, because A Pirate's Life was probably the best content that they've put out. And I think a lot of people were wondering, when are we going to get back to Flameheart? And now that we're here in the thick of it, I think folks are really enjoying the fact that we are getting to focus in so much on what's going on with the story with Flameheart Jr., with Pendragon, Belle, Ramses, all that. I think it's fantastic. And I think that the team has done a great job this year of establishing the content and the pacing that they want to do, with the slight hiccup for season 7. All right, pirates, and I think that's gonna do it. My thoughts on the adventure, and so far the year for the most part. But really glad that we got that EGX panel. Man, I was really hoping I could hear what was going on there. I'm really bummed I didn't get a chance to actually go and see the devs again. Would have loved to have had, like, second impression with Joe Neat, so he didn't think that I was such a spaz when it comes to game balance or all that jazz, while he's just trying to have fun. And a chance just to, I don't know, talk to Mike again, because chatting with them is fantastic. And man, the amount of devs that were probably there that I didn't get a chance to meet at SOT Fest were, it's probably a lot. And I'm just, man, I don't know. I love that studio. I love those people. I think those people are fantastic. I think those people are working hard to try and make a game that we all enjoy. And yeah, I just love that. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed this content, as always, it helps. Depending on where you're listening to this, there's always ratings you can do, or thumbs up or subscribes, things that will always help with kind of discoverability of the show. I mean, I do a podcast. A lot of people don't watch podcasts on YouTube. A lot of people, they'll listen to them, but it's not like a streamer. I'm not doing this every day, 8 hours a day, so that you can have that moment to kind of see what's going on. So thank you if you're listening to this. I appreciate it. If you want to get a hold of me, there's plenty of ways to do that. Reach me over on Twitter for now, until Twitter implodes, at CAPT_LOGUN. You can always write into the show through email, CAPTLOGUN@gmail.com. You can always join the Discord. Sherpas are out there if you need any help with anything, especially with the PvP season 8 coming. Who knows what that's going to entail. So I imagine if you're needing help getting better at PvP, they always are willing to take folks on to help out with that. And I'm sure a lot of people out there who are out hunting for other pirates and stuff would love to jump in to help kind of give some tips and tricks on what you can do to get better at PvP, or just in general. If you're needing help with the game, that's what those Sherpas are in there for. Discord link is in the show notes as well too. Just jump in. It's a good way to chat with folks about a whole bunch of multitude of things, whether you're talking about Diablo 4 or what else have we been talking about? We talking about the Microsoft and Blizzard Activision deal that's been going on as well too. Just a whole bunch of fun stuff that we're chatting about. And it's a good group of people who are just some of the nicest people, salt of the earth folks. Really great to have them in that community. And I think that's going to do it. So if you guys have any questions, just check out the show notes. Let me know. I'm always around. I always see everything. I just don't always respond to everything. But yeah, it's nice that you guys are out there enjoying the game still. So anyway, I think that's going to do it. So thank you. I love you. And I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Are you into the cyberpunk tabletop games or excited for Cyberpunk 2077? Are you looking to brush up on the lore stay up on all the latest news, and talk about the game when it comes out, check out the Cyberpunk Lorecast, a show from Robots Radio with me, your host, Robots. We'll go over all the details you need to know about the world, characters, and story of Cyberpunk. Available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Hey there, my name's Jameson, or Big Cat,
And I am Brenna, or Mother Goose.
and together we are the hosts of the DL Weekly Gaming News.
Each week, we bring you the top stories from last week, as well as something you might have missed.
Our goal is to start a conversation about what's going on in the world of gaming.
And every week, we have a special guest join us in the chat room, where we discuss a different gaming-related topic and learn more about our guests in the 60-second download.
And if that isn't enough, we also have Slim Jims.
So come and hang out with us every week and join in on the conversation.
Good luck and have fun, everybody.
And remember, keep your goose loose.